Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scot McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
Pittsburgh is just learning again what it's like to be a diverse city. This region has had 100 years of forgetting what that looks like. And now this demographic is at 80% growth. And within the next 10 years, it's going to become more and more of an issue.
Hey, everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday, and it's a Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Guess what? I got MJ from Global Wordsmiths coming back into the studio. She was here. Well, actually, technically, she was with us in a different place. She was over at BNY Mellon last year for the finals of the Invest in Her pitch competition with Sam Hartzman and everybody over there. It's been a big year, and they've done very well. But I also like this conversation as a bit of a palate cleanser for everybody that is in the communications business. It is very easy to take your English language for granted. We're going to go through all the different ways that language affects your life. And frankly, I want you to start thinking about what would happen if you were dropped into a country where you didn't speak the language, you didn't know the customs, because that is what MJ brings to, you know, the health systems and the municipalities and the school districts and universities and aid organizations that she's working with. It's a really vital thing, and I think it might reboot some of your thinking in terms of who you're communicating with, how you communicate with them, and whether or not you're actually reaching all of your potential customers. So before we jump into that, I'm going to ask you to get into Facebook. Click the like button. Let me propagandize you through social media. I promise it won't hurt that much. Do that for me, and I will appreciate it. Let's talk to MJ. Let's find out about Global Wordsmiths and language access just generally. Hey, MJ.
Hey, Scott.
You weren't ready for that at all, were you?
Not so much.
It's nice to see you.
It's really good to see you too.
The last time you were on this show was when you were announced as the audience favorite at the Invest in Her pitch competition.
Yeah, that was a great night.
2017.
A great night.
It absolutely was. And you and I didn't know each other at that point.
That's right.
That's
I think
when we
this
met.
is the first time we met. Yeah.
Right. And I brought the short McTaggart.
Right.
And she loves you, by the way.
She's wonderful.
The whole McTaggart household is pulling for Global Wordsmiths, so you know.
Awesome.
So a lot has happened. We've got to be a year later, yeah?
Yeah, just about exactly a year.
So now I get to sit you down and you get like a solo show.
I'm excited.
No, it's nothing like that. It's actually fairly boring. Don't worry about it. So what is new at Global Wordsmiths?
So a lot's changed in the year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we've debuted some new product lines.
Nice.
We've grown quite a bit. Our impact initiatives have really taken off.
Yeah.
And right now, the big news is that we're in the middle of this grant from the Jefferson Regional Foundation that's been an awesome opportunity to expand language access into the Jefferson Regional Service Area.
How about that? That's for those of you that are outside of the Pittsburgh area, that's a hospital system south of the city.
Yes. And there's a foundation called the Jefferson Regional Foundation that has a community collaborative.
Nice.
Made up of, I think, 75 organizations in their service area, which is mostly the southern suburbs. So the Jefferson Regional Foundation pledged a grant to cover 2 years of Global Wordsmiths going into organizations who are members and providing high-level consulting, teaching organizations how to become language accessible.
Yeah. Well,
and doing trainings.
Well, people make the mistake of thinking of you all as translators. Right?
Yeah, and we do that. So we have a couple of different segments there. We work with a lot of small nonprofits that provide human services, social services to immigrants and refugees. We also work with immigrants and refugees directly. And then we work with foundations, municipalities, city governments, and sort of large-scale organizations to provide. So
those are your regular customers?
Yes.
Because I heard you say that the immigrants themselves might be one of them. So they're coming to you directly as well?
Sometimes. So most language service providers, as we're called, don't like
LSPs.
to do LSPs.
I don't know. That feels funky. We got to do better.
Clunky. Most LSPs don't like to do small jobs, right? So they don't want to do birth certificates. They don't want to do academic transcripts for PhDs from other countries. And we love doing that stuff because we can really help people by doing that stuff.
I get it.
Yeah, but we also do the large scale, we just did a 150-page assignment for a company out of New York City called Rethink Autism. All this great stuff is going to be online now, translated into Spanish for the parents of Spanish-speaking children.
Right.
And so, we sort of serve immigrants and refugees through our ability to serve the nonprofits that serve them, if that even makes any sense.
So it's a two-step.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I would say that our biggest segment is nonprofit organizations that provide human services to immigrants and refugees.
Now, okay, so I'm thinking about the complexity of having so many different potential audiences.
Yes.
Right? So you're talking about, you might do that birth certificate for that one person, or you might have some hospitals that need some complex, because there's complexity not just in terms of who the customer is, but then also complexity in terms of what's the project.
Exactly.
But so there's sort of, I'm looking at this as a graph where on one axis you're talking about how complex is the customer, and on the other axis is how complex is the language that you're translating.
Or the service that we're providing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you get into a lot of nuances like Pittsburgh's Somali Bantu population, for example. A lot of them aren't necessarily literate in their native languages. Some of their languages are not written languages. For example, Mai is just a spoken language. It's not written at all. There's also the complexity that most of the Somali Bantus who live in Pittsburgh came here from refugee camps in Kenya. So they'll speak Swahili, but as a second language, not as their first language. So trying to match interpreters with complex populations is also kind of part of what we do.
And there's a dialect problem.
Yeah, dialects are different.
There's a loud door problem. Hi, Buzzy. That was awesome. It was like he's like trying to sneak through it. What's up, photos?
Oh boy.
So there's a dialect problem too, in the fact that some of these languages are spoken across broad areas.
Yeah.
And you need the right dialect on top of everything else.
Yeah, you need the right dialect. You need to make sure that you're not sending, a male Arabic speaker into a female's home, for example, or
customs too.
Yeah, or somebody who is from Morocco will not speak the same dialect as somebody from northern Iraq or somebody from Jordan, for example. So, there's a lot of nuance that goes into providing language services. And right now we provide services in 37 languages, and we've got 93 independent contractors and W-2 employee linguists who work for us. Yeah, so our team has really grown in the last year.
12 months, You've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
Now, a year ago, what was the size of the team by comparison?
17.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to jump off, but I remembered it being 20.
Yeah, it was right around 17 when we started. And so that would have been right around a year ago. Probably by October we were, I would say around 20.
How about that?
Yeah, and really the cool thing about our model is that we've had the chance to really listen to what people want, and we've had the chance to get creative with that. It's great that we have loyal customers who are able to tell us, hey, can you do some trainings for our staff, right? So we developed a training curriculum that teaches people all about language access.
Right.
It's,
it's still complicated. Like
it is complicated.
Like when you tell people that they need to know about language access, I get the feeling like they probably turn 2/3 of their brain off going, oh, that's easy stuff.
Yeah. Or they shut down completely because they think it's really hard. Like hospitals, for example, know that they're obligated to provide language services, but it feels
Do they? Really?
They're starting to
I've done a
figure it
lot
out.
of time in hospitals, right? And this is not, granted, maybe I'm in a different department, right? But this does not feel like it's top of mind.
There's been progress. And that's actually one of our value propositions. That's one of our core missions, is to go out into the community and teach people why language access is important.
Well, you said it was a legal requirement.
It's a legal requirement. It's Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Executive Order 13166.
Okay, so 1964 means you've had a chance to get there.
Yeah, and there have been multiple legal precedents, but most people just don't think of it the same way they would think of, for example, sign language interpreting.
So how do you educate people without coming across as either A, somebody who's going to burn a ton of their time,
right,
or B, somebody who feels like they're talking down to them?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So I put a lot of thought into our training curriculums. We have 3 trainings that we do for service providers as a service. This is one of our products that we sell to generate revenue. And so we go into organizations and we train them. And one of the first things I say to people is, we're not here to shake our fist at you and say that you're doing it wrong. We're here to say, Pittsburgh is just learning again what it's like to be a diverse city. This region has had 100 years of forgetting what that looks like. And now this demographic is at 80% growth. And within the next 10 years, it's going to become more and more of an issue.
Yeah.
So we're learning
never
together.
thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Because when the economy dipped,
when the steel industry
everybody
fell out,
moved away. There was no reason for the diverse populations to try to come here. Now, all of a sudden, you've got completely different set of policymakers, completely different set of businesses driving the economy.
Yeah.
But you seem more focused on the helping people side of it than the commercial side. Is that a fair statement?
Yes and no. I mean, I want people to know that we are a business. We're a Pennsylvania S corporation and we generate revenue. But one of the things that is very important to us and to me and to our mission is that we use that profit to create social impact. So we're able to generate profit and be a sustainable enterprise and help people. And I think there's no reason why an organization can't do both.
One of the things that interests me is that when you are a socially minded company, it is your values that can drive disruption. So you don't have to be shareholder first if you don't want to be. You can say, we're a privately held company and we have decided that we're going to pay people more than our competition. And then we're going to advertise that. And we're seeing that right now with Amazon saying, okay, we'll do $15 minimum wage, right? Costco has done that for years, where it's like, our people are really happy. You should come work for Costco.
Yeah. And there's data that shows that when you retain good people, they're more productive and your product is better quality as well. So really it's an investment in your people. It's an investment in your company. But, part of what makes our model disruptive is exactly that. I think, the language service industry is a $5 billion industry. It's this massive monolithic
Is that in the U.S.
thing.
or is that worldwide?
In the U.S. alone.
Okay.
And it's sort of famous for these huge mergers and acquisitions that generate these companies that just kind of hire anybody bilingual, throw them in the field with minimal training, pay them, $15 an hour, and then charge the client $75 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. Right? That's pretty much standard across the industry. And then the independent contractor doesn't have any job stability, doesn't have a living wage, doesn't have access to benefits, paid time off. And because most of our labor are themselves immigrants and refugees,
right?
We want to make sure that they have job security because we know that that's better for our region. We know it's better for our company, and it's really better for everyone involved. And so as a result, we have a really loyal staff. We have a great team. And we're able to advertise that as a value proposition also. I think a lot of customers want to support a company that's doing good in the world. Do
you ever feel like somehow, though, as the people who are maybe a little bit more value-oriented, that you miss the boat, right? Like you're not as cutthroat. You don't have that killer instinct. You're not willing to jump out as far on the same limb as somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's I'm leading you a little bit, but I don't mean to, right? Like I'm wondering if you worry about that.
I don't worry about it because my goal isn't to blow up and be acquired or to be a giant monolith. I want to, change the world. I want to make Western Pennsylvania a more welcoming and integrated place. I want to provide good jobs. That's kind of the goal. It's this nebulous sort of thing that, can certainly generate revenue. Mm-hmm. Maybe we will blow up and that would be fine. But I think that by setting the North Star to impact and sustainability and following those goals, we can kind of stay focused on that as the end game.
So how, and I know we talked about this a year ago, but how does someone end up in this business?
So in my case, it's pretty random. I studied history and public service at Pitt. I had never spoken Spanish or really traveled much outside of Pittsburgh. And when I was 19, my best friend, Leah, shout out, Leah,
hey, Leah.
I know you're listening, said, hey, come to Costa Rica with me for a year.
Nice.
So I packed my bags, bought a Spanish textbook, went to Costa Rica, speaking no Spanish. And we ended up staying down there for like 2 years. And I became super fluent and, came back to the States, fell in love with a guy from Mexico City, moved to
Moved
Mexico
right
City with him, and I was there for about 2 years.
You were back for a cup of coffee, and then you went back.
Yeah, came back again, did a couple semesters at Pitt, and then went back to Costa Rica on my own after I broke up with the guy from Mexico City.
Well, he had it coming, I hear.
He had it coming, so yeah. But just sort of in that time, I got really good at the language really quickly.
Yeah.
And like, I can't even perform long division, but I can pick up a language in the air. So I discovered that this was my skill.
Yeah.
And I cultivated it and I loved it. And then when I did come back to Pittsburgh and like settle down, I worked my way through college working as a translator interpreter. I got to know the industry really well. And I got really into the advocacy component.
That's what I was going to say, because up until this point, you were only giving me half the story. You basically said, this is how I learned to speak Spanish. Right.
Yeah. And
but there's a mission on your mind, right?
Yeah.
You're not so much dollar motivated. And I read a book really recently. It was The Coming Storm. It's Michael Lewis, the Flash Boys guy, the Moneyball guy, right? And he did this thing about how there are people that are mission motivated and there are people who are money motivated.
I think you can do both. And that's really what I'm trying to do here. We're up like 530% from last time I saw you. And
that's a happy number.
Part of this is baked into our model. Like, one of the cool things that we're very transparent about is our biggest social impact initiative, the Language Access Project. It's designed to provide free translation and interpretation to small nonprofits who really can't afford it. And as a result, immigrants and refugees can access those programs. So what we do is we go into universities, we recruit bilingual students, we put them through our staff training, we supervise them, we monitor them, we support them, and they provide free translation.
Nice.
During that process, we pick 5 or 6 nonprofits during every cycle to participate, and 7 out of 9 of them become paying clients after the program ends.
That is a really good number.
It's a good number.
No, I mean, that is a really good number.
It's a really good number, but it's also not flippant. They become paying clients, but then we can generate more profit to expand the program. And so we're generating more impact. And also, I feel like, the program generates a lot of publicity for us. It helps us build relationships. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of resources, and we are able to generate a lot of impact, but it also benefits the company. It helps us grow. And most importantly, it helps sort of advance a culture of language accessibility in our region.
Right. So let's go back through that list. So you said cities, municipalities, those kinds of things, right? Mm-hmm. Hospitals, that makes perfect sense. If I'm hurt and I need translation with back and forth with a doctor, that's a life and death.
Absolutely.
Right. Schools, especially when you're talking about students that by law, like I live here now and I have to have something along those lines. And all of a sudden, no disrespect, those 100 people that you were just talking about on the team, wow, it feels like we need 3 times as many, right? Just for the local neighborhood.
Yeah. I was actually on the phone today with the director of the ASL department at Pittsburgh Public Schools. There are 53 languages spoken in Pittsburgh Public Schools right now.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, 53.
So, and that actually leads into the question I was going to ask, which is when somebody asks you for services, what does that scope look like? Are they looking for all 53 of those to be represented on like a monthly contract? Is that a retainer? How does that work?
Yeah, so typically it's ad hoc or kind of a job-by-job basis. We work with a few different school districts that are not PPS who just regularly sort of send us documents. Can you translate this by Friday?
Okay.
Maybe it's a suspension notice for a kid or an IEP plan or something like that. I think that eventually it will become more streamlined and strategic as some of that growth starts to happen. But right now it's, mostly you just email myself or our program director. You give us a call. You can submit a request through our website, and then we have somebody show up for you. We also just started offering telephonic interpretation, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And we can do that in 120 languages because we use a third-party platform
to connect.
And the platform prioritizes our staff because I don't like to use third-party interpreters because I don't...
Well, back to the problems that you said you were having.
Control. Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't necessarily speak the same dialect hasn't been filtered the same way.
Right. And so the platform we're using... There's a startup out of San Francisco called Boost Lingo.
Mm-hmm.
And they're...
That is a little too close to another brand I like.
Yeah.
That is a little too close to another brand that I am very fond of.
That's funny.
Yes, it is. You need to change your name, fellas. Anyway.
You listening to that, guys?
No, yeah. Please don't let anything bad happen to MJ because I said that. I am just mouthy. But seriously, change the name.
No, it's exciting though, because we can offer sort of like a range of tools to help our clients become accessible.
Right.
Somebody walks in off the street and you don't know what to do. We distribute language identification charts to our clients so that they can point to the language they speak.
Oh, cool.
And then they pick up the phone and they call us through this platform, and we get an interpreter on the line to set up a meeting with an in-person interpreter. And
I'm honestly really excited about all the opportunities that this creates because it seems like people aren't paying attention.
And that's sort of why, a year ago when we met, we were just doing translation and interpretation, right? But then I noticed that people don't understand how pervasive the problem is, right? And if people don't understand the need, they're not going to request the service. So, identifying sort of the systemic issues with language accessibility was one of our goals. And one of them was just that people don't understand it.
Well, okay. So you're a very sweet person, right? And I'm a bit of a bastard.
No.
Some days. And today's one of those days, which is lucky because we're going to use it to our programming advantage.
All
today,
right.
Right? Let's be honest about the fact that there are some people who are chapped about the fact that there are Spanish language translations at Lowe's on the signs, right?
Right.
Like there's definitely a cultural element to this as well, right? So if I'm the kind of person who might need those services or might be the, whatever, snowflake, bleeding heart liberal who thinks that people should actually be able to talk to their doctor, right?
Right.
I don't know that I want to have that fight. So I think a lot of people probably sit back on their heels a little bit about recommending that these 53 languages that get spoken just between K through 12 in Pittsburgh public schools might have some opportunity to interact with the larger community, right? Because again, Pittsburgh's not a big place. It's a smaller town.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to give you a number that's going to be a little shocking. 85,000 people just in Allegheny County speak a language other than English in the home, and a third of them are limited English proficient. So that's 27,000 people. Pittsburgh
has an actual population less than 300,000.
Yeah.
Right. Now the county's bigger than the city. I don't want to mislead people statistically, but
yeah, it's a huge population, and it's a number that does not take secondary migration into account, and it's based on old census data. So it's really conservative.
So what's next? Where do you want to go? Are you going to stay local? Is this going to become a national sort of like teleservices thing?
So my vision is really for this model to replicate in Rust Belt cities.
Interesting.
Big cities like New York, Chicago, LA, they don't have this problem figured out, but they have large enough populations where if you're a mom who wants to communicate with your child's teacher, chances are that teacher will speak your language or somebody at the school will speak your language. And so it's not, this constant battle to be able to communicate with the services that you need.
Right.
But in Rust Belt cities, we're seeing a lot of growth in these populations because
they're in flux right now. They're changing.
And the cost of living is still relatively low. There's public transportation, there's less competition for jobs, and there's also a lot of secondary migration that's happening, which is where, a population settles and then family, friends from other parts of the United States follow.
Right. Yeah.
A good example of that is with the ethnic Bhutanese Nepali refugees who are in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. On the books, there are about 2,000 refugees settled here.
Interesting.
But the Bhutanese Community Association of Pittsburgh estimates that number to be closer to 5,000. I want to talk just for a minute about, what it feels like to not have language access. Mm-hmm. And, I did a training this morning for Goodwill of Southwestern Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And in my trainings, I always ask people to say, hey, can you name some situations where you might need an interpreter, right? Banking, financial services, understanding overdraft fees, applying for credit, parent-teacher conferences, doctors, preventative health care, emergency
Your car broke down on the side of the road.
Cars, setting up your utilities.
You're lost.
Everything that you need to do requires language accessibility. And people are so fatigued from constantly beating their heads up against that wall that they just don't try anymore. Mm-hmm. Right. And so now we have people who aren't getting developmental care, aren't getting preventative health care, aren't getting mental health care.
We're pushing an entire sort of second society upon our own community, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like There's the one that we see that's represented in TV that you're kind of ready for. And then there's the one that exists underneath that surface of people who don't even try to participate in it because they don't understand it. They don't feel welcome.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even like if you're a landlord, right, you're going to want to know if your tenant is going to report bed bugs or an unsafe situation. Like language access is important for everybody, not just the people who it affects most.
That's really interesting. If somebody is in the market for language services, I think we should probably send them to a website that is run by you and your staff.
Yes, we're at globalwordsmiths.com, and you can learn all about our products and services and impact initiatives and everything we do there. And I always encourage people to reach out to me personally also, because I'm always happy to talk about it.
I have another idea.
Yeah.
I have to believe that there are some languages you're looking to recruit people for.
Absolutely.
Right? Because, I mean, if there's 53 in that, one small school district, then I have a feeling you've got some shortages. You've got some things that maybe are what I would say regionally more important than they are, broadly. So who are you looking for?
Right now we're recruiting in Erie for Spanish speakers.
Got it.
And we're recruiting here in Pittsburgh for Urdu, Dari, Pashto, Swahili, all the Somali languages, and Turkish.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. Those are all of our biggest needs.
Well, I'm sure at least a couple people who listen to this fine program can go, I know somebody who speaks that language natively and is now, right, like looking for work. Because that's the other thing. It's one of those things you can do, right?
Yeah. And send them our way. We provide all the training. We have...
So you don't have to have a background in it.
Yeah. Every single one of our interpreters goes through like a month of training. We do mandated reporting, fire safety and evacuation, CPR, first aid, universal precautions, interpreter and translator best practices, and ethics, Act 33, Act 34, and FBI clearances.
That's to be able to carry a gun, right?
No.
Oh, come on.
No guns. No guns in our interpretation sessions.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be cool for a second. Be like, yeah.
We're
going to go out on the range now. Mary Jayne's got the coolest jobs.
Actually, in my career individually as an interpreter, I've done some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like I got to interpret a police interrogation once, and it was straight out of Law and Order, like good cop, bad cop.
Nice.
It was pretty cool.
Were you able to like bring all like the the slang into it too?
Oh yeah.
See, that's where I always think they lose, right?
Yeah.
It's like the Google Translate of an angry conversation is not going to be anywhere near. It would be like, you are dog. You are stupid dog. And it's like, well, that doesn't sound intimidating at all, does it?
You are a female dog, bad person.
Bad person with stupid head. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the feeling like, one of those things is like, well, how animated is the other person? But the other bit is definitely like, I need to hear what the words are. Like, I need to know exactly what's being said.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought up Google Translate, because a lot of people ask us like, well, what about competition with machine translation? And that's a really valid point.
No, I didn't bring it up on purpose.
Well, that's good. It's not the same.
We're talking here about customs. We're talking here about being able to let your hair down and speak your native language for a minute. Siri doesn't figure into this.
Yeah. Well, and also they just do a poor job, like objectively. Like,
of course.
The translations aren't accurate.
Well, you've got a dialect problem like we were talking about. Like all the moving parts we've been discussing.
Yeah. And even just like the syntax, like if you put a sentence into Google Translate, like the cat ran down the hall with a ball, it might spit back at you, cat ran hall the down with ball.
There's that.
Yeah.
There's also, it can't even get what I say.
Right.
And I'm not asking for a translation.
Right.
Like there's that too, right?
Yeah.
Where I will ask for something and I will get results different than what I was looking for.
Right.
If you're first and foremost a search engine and then I punch it in and I don't get what I'm looking for.
Right.
I don't know. It seems like we should take care of that part of the house first.
I agree.
MJ, it is always good to see you.
Same. Thank you so
Mary
much.
Jayne McCullough, Global Wordsmiths. Always nice to see her. And check them out at globalwordsmiths.com.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, that's the end of the ride. Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate MJ coming into our studio and basically just blowing everybody's mind. It's good to have a reset on all the different ways that you talk to people and frankly how hard it would be if everyone decided just not to reach out to large swaths of the population that don't quite get it. So hopefully that helps you to reboot your thinking. And if you know anybody, these translators and whatnot that she's looking for, I really appreciate it if you hook her up. Otherwise, Buzzy and I are going to jump into these Epicast studio laboratories, and we are going to come up with another show for you. We will catch you on Wednesday. Take care of yourselves in the meantime.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.